Thank you so very, very much for being here this morning. My name is Regina Bodner. I have the privilege of being the Executive Director of Carroll Hospice. And on behalf of the hospice, our Board of Directors, I would like to thank you for coming to our 2017 Veterans Breakfast. We are at capacity crowd, as you can tell. And if I recall, just 2 years ago, we needed to move from another venue because we had outgrown that space as well. So I think to myself, what a wonderful problem to have such a large gathering to celebrate you, because this breakfast is truly all about you and for us to be able to thank you for your service to our country. I'd like to acknowledge our board members who are here with us this morning. First, the chair of our board of directors, Delegate Susan Krebs, is here with us this morning. Mr. Wayne Barnes. Wayne? Mr. Todd Herring, who's hiding way in the back. And Mr. Todd Mitchell. Todd, where'd you go? All right. Thank you so much for being here to support our event this morning. I'd also like to thank Ellen Finnerty-Myers, the VP of Corporate Development, who's here with us as well. So, Ellen. At this moment, I'd like to turn the podium over to Randy Smith to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Delegate Krebs.
Thank you, Reggie, and thank you all for being here. On behalf of the Carroll Hospice and our Board of Directors, it is really an honor to stand before you, members of our military past and present, and I want to personally thank you for your service and your sacrifice for our country. I also want to thank Coons Toyota, and I think Angie Bordner is here. She's on her way. Coons is the one that pays for your breakfast, and that is Mr. Coons is very supportive of the military, so thank them when you visit over at Coons, and thank them for having this breakfast. No matter how large it gets, they're willing to fund that for us. I want to thank you all for your courage, and when it comes to the price that men and women pay who serve our country for freedom, it's just immeasurable to talk about. And I'm going to encourage many of you to think about the rest of this week. There are a lot of activities going on in our county, in our schools. And it's really important. You're all here, and you're all older, we're all older, but we need our youth to see who our heroes are, and you are our heroes. Right now we have football players taking meals. We don't want them to be our heroes, you're our heroes. And that's why it's important to get in front of our students, our young people, and remind them of that. And our school system does a really good job of honoring our veterans. So there's programs all over. I know Winters Mill's having a program, and Century, and Manchester Valley, and a lot of the elementary schools. So call up your local school and see what's going on the rest of the week, and get in front of our students and our young people and show them who you are. The men and women who gave their lives in service to this nation are indisputably our heroes. When their country called, they answered. Some volunteered, and some were volunteer told. I guess that's some of you. No matter how they found their way into the ranks of the military, each took it upon him or herself to serve faithfully until their fullest. This is commendable in a nation where so few among us, our citizens, have really donned the uniform. But you all did, and we appreciate that. I'd like to ask all the veterans, past and present, to stand. Just stay standing for a moment. Wow. This is not representative of the general public, as you know. But today, we're here to bless you. God bless each and every one of you, and may your Veterans Day be a day of rest, reflection, and peace in your hearts. For knowing that you answered our nation's call in times of war and peace, we are forever grateful. As I mentioned, please consider participating in one of our school activities. Let them see who you are. To those of you who are standing in front of us, you are our heroes. Thank you, we salute you, and we honor you, veterans. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
You may may have noticed that we have a table here in the front of the room for our missing man. At this point, I'd like to invite Don Walker to the podium to tell us about the table for our missing man.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you, Reggie. My name, as Reggie said, is Don Walker, and I'm a hospice volunteer. It's a blessing in my life. It's a very important part of my life. And every day I think how happy I am, at a ripe old age of 81, to be up here in front of you, and I know every one of you thought I was about 65. I knew that. I could tell by the look on your faces. But it's a privilege to be here with Carroll Hospice. I come up from Columbia, Maryland, so I come a ways. But I told someone one time when I interviewed for hospice, they said, "Why do you want to come so far?" And I said, "It's not about the distance, it's about the purpose. That's what counts." And that's why I'm here, and I've been fortunate and privileged and blessed to be a member of hospice, Carroll Hospice, for 2.5 years. I am a privileged member of the We Honor Veterans team, led by our coordinator, a wonderful, wonderful human being, Kim Benson. I know most of you know Kim. If you know Kim, you love Kim. Everybody loves Kim. She's wonderful. So here at hospice, that's why this old man is standing up here in front of you today, with the help of a cane, you may have noticed. I am here this morning for about 5 minutes to talk about the table right in front of the podium that Reggie mentioned a short moment ago. I'm honored to share with you the remembrance ceremony called the Missing Man Table. So if you have a chance sometime this morning, walk up and look at the table and see what is on the table, the Missing Man Table, because I'm going to take you item for item through each of those items on the table, and you're going to help me remember. And I'll show you how we do that. It's focused on, and the whole concept of what we're talking about here today is focused on our brothers in the military. We are all brothers and sisters, Allison, excuse me. And it's all about the fallen, the missing, and the imprisoned that we never, ever want to forget. This is a ceremony, this remembrance ceremony, that is given throughout the world at U.S. military facilities on special days. We have Veterans Day coming up this Friday, so that's why hospice thought it would be appropriate to share it with you today. I would like to take, and it would be a privilege, if I might, to explain to you the meaning of each of the items on that table right in front of the podium. I know some of you in the back and in the sides, you're too far away to really see it, but right in front of the podium, if you have time during our morning breakfast, please come up and see what it represents. There's much symbolism in this, and much we need to remember. So what I'd like to do is tell you that the table has a place of honor. And you'll see and hear what I mean by that. In setting the table, we acknowledge that one person is missing symbolically for all our missing brothers and sisters in the military. And what I would like to do at this moment is ask all of you to be part of this presentation. It's short, it's beautiful, it's only about 5 minutes, but I need your help. So on cue, as we go through each of the items, I'm going to ask you on cue to say the word remember. To say the word remember, because it's a powerful word. It's a priceless word, talking about the fact that we can never forget our brothers and sisters. Starting out, the table is small, as you can see. The table is small and set for one, symbolizing vulnerability of the lone prisoner against his captors. Remember. The wine glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us this morning. They are not here with us. Think how blessed we all are to be here. Remember. Thank you. The slice of lemon, reminding us of their bitter suffering. Remember. The grains of salt, representing the countless tears of the families while they're waiting for their brothers to return. Remember. The single rose, reminding us of loved ones who keep the faith while they wait for their loved ones to return home. Remember. The burning candle and the yellow ribbon, symbolizing everlasting hope, which we all had, of a reunion with the missing. Remember. And remember all of us that have served with those brothers and sisters that are missing. They all wore, just like all of us did, the proud uniform of the United States of America. And they were sworn in with the same faith and allegiance that we all took, all of us together. Duty, honor, country. The values that mean so much to the military and so much to all of us. So we will never forget their sacrifice. Remember. And until the day that they return home or find eternal peace, we will always remember. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for helping me. And thank you for helping your brothers. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. And as it was already said this morning, remember this: God bless America. Thank you. Amen. Thank you.
Now I'd like to welcome Art Monroe, the chaplain with Carroll Hospice, to lead us in a prayer.
Well, I want to thank you for the great honor and privilege that you give me of taking a moment and sharing just a few words. Because indeed it is a great honor and privilege to recognize your service and sacrifice to the great gift that you've given all of us. We have an incredible leadership in Carroll Hospice. And what I'd like to share with you is, a few weeks ago, an idea was taken to the leadership of hospice since there was the vintage air show coming to the Westminster Airport, and we had several veterans who actually served on bombers that were actually coming to the air show. Well, the idea was raised, what if we offered to the families to provide transportation to get them to the air show and give them the opportunity to relive that experience? Well, from the leadership came the news that that just wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. So what the leadership for Carroll Hospice did is they extended the invitation to provide transportation to every single veteran in hospice care, 24 individuals. Now, some of the stories that came out of that are amazing, but I'd like to share with you the personal experiences that I heard from the children. One of them called me, one of the sons, and said, "I apologize, I just don't think that my dad is going to be able to be there." And he couldn't. But I want to let you know that it reminded me that about 10 years ago, the Enola Gay was close enough that my father and I could go visit it, and we did. And I want to thank you for reminding me about one of the most cherished memories that I have. And we have a daughter who shared with us that she had the experience of sitting in the position of the bombardier in the B-17, which was the position her father was in 1944. When that B-17 he was in was shot down over Germany at 30,000 feet. And he not only survived that, survived being a prisoner of war, survived and raised a wonderful family, but she got to, for a moment of time, experience what her father experienced and see what her father saw. And that was amazing for her. It is our great honor and privilege to honor him and provide these experiences. We will never be able to repay the debt. We will never be able to show enough gratitude. But we thank you for the opportunity to try. Let us bow our heads in prayer for them. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the great opportunities that you give us in this thing called life to do good and to make a difference. We thank you for the opportunities to engage in relationship with those around us and hear their stories, to feel their joy and to share their sadness. And we thank you for the great opportunity that you give us to just be present for them. It's the least we can do. So, Heavenly Father, bless us, bless them, and bless this food for the good of our bodies. In thy name we pray. Amen.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning and echo everybody else's words. Thank you so much for your service. God bless every single one of you for anything and all the sacrifices you made, whether you were here home or overseas. Thank you. We would not be where we are today without your service. I've stood up here now for 4 years and was able to publicly thank Kuhn's Toyota of Westminster. Without their support, there's no way we would be able to grow this breakfast, grow our services. They have supported the community in ways that you see them sometimes in the papers, but I don't think that even touches everything that they do for us. So we're so appreciative. But I have to say very quickly, Art, thank you. I don't know where Art went, but telling that story of taking the veterans to see the planes touched me, because that service was only provided because of community support of a specific fund that we were able to get from a community member. So I had not heard that story, but it just reminds me why I do what I do in raising funds for Carroll Hospice in the hospital. So thank you, Art, for sharing that. And I'd like to bring up Angie Borner once again. As a representative from Kuhn's Toyota for all they do, but just a short message from Angie. Angie.
Hello, good morning to everyone, friends, family, people I know, people I'm going to get to know. With the veterans in Carroll County, I'd like to start with a saying I just heard recently, that without adversity, we don't develop resilience. And with that resilience, I believe we develop dignity and integrity. And our armed forces are a primary example of what they do and how they live, and they set the examples for our community. So I thank you very much for that. many of our citizens, myself included, take for granted everything that you and your families go through and do and provide for us so that we can live and benefit in our community, our towns, and our country. So I really appreciate that also. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be able to stand up here in front of everyone. I've never personally had to go through or gone through supporting the families of the veterans. My dad, my brothers didn't, were not part of, but I have a number of relatives, and I know the sacrifices that the families go through. Just a personal note, my son-in-law works for FEMA, and he's just been sent to St. Croix. So originally it was going to be for 3 or 4 weeks. Now we've heard it might go straight from St. Croix to Puerto Rico, which takes it into Christmas. My daughter is a nurse at Carroll Hospital in the critical care floor, who has an 18-month-old son, which is my grandson, and I'll be glad to show pictures of anyone that would like to see. But just what the family goes through when all of a sudden, we didn't know whether Todd was going to be going, he had to pack a bag and be ready, and it could be tomorrow or it could be 10 days. They were trying to work the transportation. But what the families then at home sacrifice and do to support their brothers, their sisters, their children, it's taking 5 of us. It really does take a village, I have found, to coordinate with my daughter's nursing schedule and who's picking up Noah and who's spending the night and who's taking care of the dog. And we're also a farm family, so we're loading cattle to take to the butcher shop on Monday, I think it was. So it's amazing what it really takes. And that really made me realize what the families of the veterans live through and the sacrifices and just the character that's developed with that. So I really personally want to thank you for that. Coons Westminster Toyota is privileged to be a co-sponsor of this event of the Carroll Hospital with Carroll Hospice of the We Honor Veterans Breakfast. So again, I just want to thank you again for your time. Thank you, Carroll Hospice, the community, the hospital center, everyone that supports our veterans, our citizens, and the people that sometimes don't have the family support that I'm fortunate to have. So thank you again, and enjoy the breakfast.
Now we have the opportunity to have a sneak peek at the oral history project, courtesy of the Carroll Media Center. I'd like to thank Sherry Taylor for bringing this to us this morning as we learn about the oral history project and recording the stories of so many veterans across our country. Tyler?
I got my draft notice, and the first thing I did was throw it in the trash. And then a day later, I decided that was not a smart thing to do, so I picked it out of the trash, showed up when I was supposed to, and that was it. I was in the Army.
I reached in the bag and I pulled out a hand grenade.
I noticed a few familiar faces on the screen just a moment ago. So both Gary and Bill, we saw you up on that screen. They're both Carroll Hospice volunteers, and they participate in our vet-to-vet program, which is when someone is enrolled in hospice care and they have a military history. We try to connect them with a veteran volunteer because we understand how important that story, that part of their life is. So if there's any among you who would like to learn more about our vet-to-vet program, we would welcome you to our ranks. So that said, it is time for our keynote speaker, Dr. Sarah Lentz. Dr. Lentz grew up in southern New England on a small farm. She attended Yale College and then earned a Master's of Public Health at Yale, followed by medical school at Dartmouth. She completed general surgery residency at Emory in Atlanta, Georgia, and then entered active duty Air Force in 2002, stationed at Keelsert Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. During Dr. Lentz's time in the Air Force, she was deployed to Saudi Arabia during Operation Enduring Freedom, and then to Iraq during the Iraq War. After 4 years of active duty, Dr. Lentz moved to Westminster, met her husband, and now resides in Tawnytown with their daughter. Dr. Lentz currently works at Carroll Hospital as a general surgeon. She is the vice president of the medical staff at Carroll Medical Center and the senior vice commander of VW Post 6918 in Harney. Dr. Lentz.
Good morning and welcome. Standing up here in front of a bunch of people scares me more than any of that stuff that I've done previously, so bear with me. We gathered together this morning to celebrate and recognize our veterans. I'd like to start by recognizing all of those among us who have given of themselves in service to the nation, our veterans, active duty service members, guardsmen, and reservists. All your sacrifices and those of your families have helped to keep our country safe and free. As veterans, it is in the front of our minds and hearts how amazing a nation we live in. We need to continue to do what we can to keep it that way and encourage others as well. This was a difficult talk for me to put together. I don't talk much about what I've experienced, and I'm sure most of you don't either. I don't want to relive it. The life experiences are tied together. Every day they're reminders. So I'm going to share with you a few memories of my experiences in hopes that you will carry on from them. I remember 9/11. I was a chief resident in general surgery in Atlanta. I was taking the junior residents and medical students through rounds on the 10th floor at Emory University Hospital. I can picture the room I was in. We were talking with the patient, and he had his television on. The first jet flew into one of the twin towers. At first, I thought it was a dramatization, but I realized it wasn't. We stood there and watched the second jet fly into the tower. We stood in disbelief. This was less than a year away from when I would start my active duty. The time came for me to report. Fortunately, it wasn't moved up. As I was being in process at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, a young NCO put my name into the computer. As many of you probably do, you spell your name for people, even if it's a common name, and you look over their shoulder. He put my middle name in wrong. I corrected him, and I was told it really didn't matter. It does matter, details matter. I don't think Social Security will be around when I'm a little older, but one can always hope. Information about Sutherland Springs shooter, if handled properly, may have prevented a tragedy. I remember when I returned from Saudi Arabia after my first deployment during Iraqi freedom. I was driving down the interstate. I was on my way back to Keesler. This is going to be tough. The air was warm and my windows were down. I was overwhelmed with the realization of freedom. In Saudi, I was confined to a base in the middle of a desert. It got to 110 degrees every day. My life was the clinic, the gym, the cafeteria, and a tiny room I shared with the lieutenant colonel who worked at the KAOC and a captain who flew C-130s. And yes, they were both women. As a board certified general surgeon, I was taking care of athlete's foot and chronic cough. The sand was hard on us. Life was far from glamorous. When I got home, it was an incredible feeling as I drove down that road, knowing I could go freely where I wanted. I felt how vast and bountiful our country was, in contrast to the arid desert of the Middle East. I also felt safe. The medical personnel at Prince Sultan Air Force Base in Saudi had an old brown bus, painted with a red cross, some would call it a target, that transported us from the barracks to the flight line where our clinic was. I learned to drive that bus, so I was guaranteed a trip to bed after my shift. That old bus wouldn't go over 50 miles an hour. We had to drive down Prince Sultan Highway to get to the clinic, and this was off the base. There were always big dusty Mercedes going 100 miles an hour passing us. There were verified threats against us, and so we tried to limit our exposure on the highway. I would keep my foot to the floor the whole ride. The military police escort was little reassurance. Their F-150 would pull up next to the bus, motion for me to go faster. Then they would drive on. I would keep going with my head down. I'm not feeling so safe in America anymore. Some of this may have been because I was a little naive 15 years ago, but I know not completely. It is less safe. More terrorist attacks are plotted and more are occurring on our soil. 8 were killed and almost a dozen injured just last week when a terrorist drove a rented pickup truck down a busy bicycle path in New York City. Those Argentinians probably felt safe riding their bikes on their 30th high school reunion. I remember when I was deployed the second time to Iraq. I certainly didn't feel safe as the C-17 spiraled in to land in the dark with all the window covers tightly closed. The spiral was to avoid rocket-propelled missiles. Balad was a huge base about 45 miles from from Baghdad. I studied a map before I left in case I had to try to find a way out of the country. There were no good options. There really were no options. So I have to consider why Bo Bergdahl would really consider leaving his post. Was he that naive? There was no way out. He said he wanted to make those at a larger base aware of issues at his post. Why not follow the chain of command? Instead, he deserted his post on June 30th, 2009. He was captured within hours. He was held for 5 years by the Taliban-aligned Haqqani network in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And he was released after a controversial exchange for 5 Guantanamo Bay detainees. He recently stood trial in military court. He was dishonorably discharged and will face no prison time for pleading guilty to charges of desertion and misbehavior before the enemy. I wonder how safe he feels. I wonder where those detainees are and what they may be plotting. What precedent does this set for our troops, keeping them safe and in turn our country? I remember an insurgent that was brought to the hospital in Balad. He had been shot in the abdomen. Our hospital was a series of tents linked together with several portable hardened structures for the ORs and the CT scanners. The wounded were usually flown in on Black Hawks and carried to our ER. There we would triage them to X-ray, to the ward, to the OR, and this guy needed surgery. Off we went down the tent hallway to the OR. He was anesthetized, and I made an incision down the middle of his abdomen. There was an obvious bullet hole in his belly. I explored for damage. The story circulating around this guy was that he had killed several Marines. I remember being gripped with anger.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought how easy it would be to squeeze his aorta or run into some bleeding. I didn't. That's not what I do. That's not what Americans do. I took out part of his colon and he healed. And it turns out he had killed no one. I remember many injuries, but only a few faces. One was a Marine who had been in a tank that had been hit and burned. He was burned in such a way that he looked alive, but he wasn't. Only after taking an ultrasound to show the nurses and technicians he had no heartbeat would they stop trying to save him. He was dead. This man gave his life for our country. He understood the meaning of valor, endurance, courage, and devotion. These are the words inscribed on the base of a World War I memorial located in Bladensburg, Maryland, in PG County. This past week, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals declared this memorial unconstitutional. This monument is known as the Peace Cross, and it was built in 1923 with funding from local families in the American Legion to honor 49 PG County men who died during World War I. It is a 40-foot tall cross-shaped monument, and public funds have been used to maintain it. It's also it is a part of a larger memorial park in the immediate area, honoring veterans of several wars. The court ruled 2-1 that using taxpayer money has the primary effect of endorsing religion and excessively entangles the government and religion. If this monument must be altered or removed, it sets a precedent that could endanger many monuments across the nation, including the Argonne Cross and Arlington Cemetery. These lawsuits place a shadow over these monuments, and their meaning is clouded in the shuffle of the courts. As we all know, memorials are living memories and reminders of our country's history and the cost of war. So these are a few things that have been going on recently. Reminders, they take me back. I'm sure you all have similar experiences. And so we must remember what America is meant to be: free, safe, and honorable. It takes all of us, not just a special few, not just the veterans, not just the civil servants, not the other guy. We all have to be vigilant and good citizens. You may not feel like this helps, but it does. There is no instant gratification when it comes to building and maintaining something as great as our country. It takes the concerted effort of everyone to make our country great and keep it that way. So we must pay attention to detail. We must do the right thing, not listen to rumors, and remember those who have fought for and continue to fight for this country. That should be all of us in our own way. Thank you. God bless America.
Thank you, Dr. Lentz, so very, very much. At this point in time, I would just like to renew my thanks for each of you for being here today, for allowing us to celebrate the service that you have given to our country. There are numbers of informational brochures in the back about efforts to support our veterans, more broad than Carroll Hospice. I would like to let everyone know, however, two things. I'm reminded, because the photographer's given me this eye thing, that we would like group photos in the pavilion. So right outside to the right. So if you would be very gracious in accommodating that request, that would be wonderful. But I did also want to let you know that Carroll Hospice is launching an effort to compile care packages to send overseas to those who are presently serving. We think it's the right thing to do. I personally am at the post office once a week putting something in the mail. And what I understand now is it takes about a month to get there. So no home-baked goods are going out of the Bodner household. But please stay tuned. I know that we have contact information for most in the room, and we will be reaching out just to let you know what we're doing and how we're doing it, so that we can support those who are presently serving who might not have family members who can get a package in the mail on a regular basis. There are many serving who rely on the generosity of all of us here today. So thank you so very, very much for being here. I will hope to see everyone in 2018. Thank you very much.